Hi guys, this week we're talking about women in sports. Now, I've always loved sports. I've always participated in loads of different types of sports, even though I'm not particularly good at any of them, but I'm the one who always gets involved. But yeah, by secondary school, well, I went to a school that was supposedly a specialist school for sport. I think it just lost that title now, but it was meant to be really good for sports, and to be fair, they did offer a lot of different types of sports, and I just absolutely threw myself into all of them. But for me and for most of my girl mates, that sport was tied up with a lot of sort of weight issues and body image problems, and I think a lot of us didn't make the effort in sports, or didn't want to get involved, or just hated it because we were so self-conscious. Like, swimming was pretty much my worst nightmare for a while, quite a lot of other girls' worst nightmares, to the point where they would just make lies up to get out of doing it and to get out of showing themselves, and it was just so sort of difficult because I like to think that, you know, we would have all been really involved and we would have loved like playing all of these sports and stuff if we could just get over our body hang up. You could see it when we left the changing rooms to go to the pitches or the tennis court or whatever. If we left at the same time as the guys left their changing room, there was just like a tangible amount of sort of self-consciousness, and everyone was just, you know, tugging their clothes like and flicking their hair, and it was just awful, really. We all got so nervous about what other people thought that we looked like in our sports gear that we weren't even concentrating on the sport at all. I mean, I don't know how much of this was just me and I'm projecting it onto the other girls, but it felt like that. Like, obviously that kind of thing will be different in all girls schools. I don't know, I've never been to one, but I want to hear what your experiences have been, and what kind of school you were, and what it was like for sports, and whether you sort of felt all of these pressures on you. Like, we were competitive as hell in our sports teams, especially during matches, but during classes with other people who weren't in the sports teams, it kind of felt like this sort of competitiveness was like a masculine trait, which therefore it wasn't cool, so therefore you shouldn't do it, which kind of made people just not try. It just seems like competitiveness, or like just proficiency in sports, is coded as masculine, which is completely screwed up to start off with, which, you know, means it's therefore an undesirable trait for women. I think women's football, like, you hear men who love football, who will go and watch the football every Saturday and chat about it and like know every single player's life story and just be really into this football, and won't watch women's football, not even for a second, because they're manly or scary or whatever. Right, I just found out today that the women's football team, England's women's football team, got onto the World Cup final, and we didn't hear a peep about it. If the men's team got on, we wouldn't stop hearing about it. It's ridiculous how sort of invisible a lot of women's sport is. Like, when was the last time you saw women's rugby on TV, or cricket, or basketball, or anything? I'm not a cycling fan that much, which may account for some of my ignorance, but I didn't even realise that Tour de France was a male race, and that there's a female, like a Tour de France feminine, which seems to have been getting smaller by the year, and apparently the last one was cancelled, which is rubbish. Like, it's just so invisible, and that's the problem, I think, is that's why a lot of people don't get involved in sports, because there's not enough good role models, and there's no one saying that actually, no, this isn't a masculine trait, this is just being successful at a sport isn't gendered, and it shouldn't be gendered. I even hear that with athletes that compete in sports coded as feminine, like gymnastics. A group of guys I know, I heard them going on about how, whilst, you know, this gymnast was, yeah, well fit, but they wouldn't want to fuck her because her thighs were too manly, because they were big and strong. Like, fuck that shit. Like, I just think there's this whole attitude of men being good at sport because they're powerful, but anytime that a woman tries to be good at a sport, then that's just not feminine, and no one wants that, because women are meant to be pretty and docile and sit there looking nice. And men can go and do all the impressive stuff. Like, what? Why is that mentality still with us? What the fuck is that? I mean, there's this whole controversy about the Caster Semenya stuff, and that's completely irrelevant. And if you haven't watched Becca's video, go do that, like, after this one, because she says some perfect things about that. There's just so many little things that piss me off about the way women are treated in sports. Like, The fact that women's clothing always seems to be like such a massive issue worth discussing. Let the volleyball players just play volleyball. Does it fucking matter what they're wearing? Stop objectifying them. Let Venus and Serena Williams like just continue to dress fabulously because they are so fabulous. You don't hear anyone hyping about like what kind of t-shirt Andy Murray is wearing. So like people need to just back off the women. It's just loads of the little things that really frustrate me, and that they snowball into the sort of the bigger picture, which is that there's like barely any money in women's sports, and that so less and less women are actually getting involved in sports and activities, and it just annoys me. So I want more visibility for women in sports, and I want it now.